All right, we are live. We may begin.
Hey, thank you very much, Mansoor. Good evening, everyone. This is one of our series of regular Tuesday events, Tuesday evening for us in Germany, but wherever you're joining us from, you're also welcome, of course. This event will be streamed on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. And if some of your friends, colleagues, relatives, or people you just met today are curious to join, were curious to join, but couldn't make it yet, please share the live stream so that they know. And it's still not too late to join on Zoom, but also maybe they want to watch on one of the live streams. And today, we'll be talking about very interesting topic of product operations. This is up and coming topic in product management area. Is not recognized well in all of the companies, I think, but today I think we will learn more about why it can be very useful to set up product operations in your company, in which cases it might be interesting, and how it is connected to product management. But before I go on to pass the word to our great speaker from Pendo, I want to say a few words about myself and who product people are. So my name is Victoria. My background is in neuroscience. I am a PhD in neuroscience, but after some time working in research, decided to shift to a more fast-paced, more application-driven, let's say, areas, and currently work as a product manager as product people. Through had the chance to work in very different industries, from travel to wellness to mobility, into cybersecurity and tech, both B2B and B2C. And yeah, there are more interesting projects to come. So if you're curious how come I work with so many different topics in a relatively short time with product people, is that because it's our specialty. So product people is a product management consultancy and a community builder. As a community builder, we create this Tuesday weekly events and sometimes some additional events on the topic of product management, invite people to join and learn from each other. And by the way, we're going to start a very new series of events, so stay tuned. One of them is happening next week, but places are already taken. Stay tuned for next ones. And as product management consultancy, we do interim product management. So we work as interim product managers or POs at companies for different lengths of engagements from 3 months to 36 months. And I will tell you a bit more about this later. If you're curious how exactly it works, some of our clients within the last year were companies that you probably know from your own client experience, Scout24 or Tier. We share Freeletics, Dr. Smile, Romeo, Zalando. And if you're in Germany and Berlin, I'm sure you've seen many of these logos yourself. We're also open to new opportunities. So if you see that your company might be in need of an interim product manager or interim product owner, do let us know. We also have a referral bonus. And without further ado, I think we're going to go into the topic of today, which will be presented by Christine, who is the Senior Director, Head of Product Operations at Pendo. And she will tell us more about product operations. To prepare you and set up the tone of the topic, let's do a quick get to know you and your experience in this topic. So we have 3 questions, and Mansoor, please start our survey for people in Zoom. If you are watching us on one of the live streams, please feel free to just put your answers in the chat box, and I will also have a look at them and read them out loud. And today's poll is the following 3 questions. Question number 1, when did you hear about product operations? A, within the last 2 years, B, within the last 5 years, or a bit more, or maybe you've never heard it or just heard it the first time when you saw this event is going to happen. Second, does your team currently have a POM, so product operations manager? Yes or no? And the number 3 is the roles of product manager and product operations manager are, in your opinion, A, clearly distinct, B, different but overlapping, C, complementary. So let's see. Are the polls running? Mansoor, I see that they're running, yes. All right, maybe give me a heads up when most people have answered, and then I will read up the answers. Now looking on our YouTube and LinkedIn live streams, I see that people say quite various answers. So for A, for the first question on our live stream, some people never heard of product operations before, others have, but relatively recently, within the last 2 years. This is also what people on Zoom answered. So most people, or 70% of people, only heard about product operations within the last 2 years, and 30% never heard of this before. Question number 2 from our Zoom poll: what do people think if what do people experience in their company if they have a POM? 86% said no. Also looking in our chats, also most people did not experience having a POM at their company. And for the question number 3, how the role of product manager, product operations manager are similar or different. 70% in our Zoom say different but overlapping, and 30% say complementary. Seen in the chats, yeah, I think it's also very similar. So it's either different or overlapping. All right. I hope this set up a good stage for our discussion. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Christina, who will introduce us more to this topic. Welcome.
Thanks, Victoria. Thank you everyone for joining. Let me just share my screen, and if somebody could give me a thumbs up when they see it. Good.
Yes.
Thanks, Max. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, I saw the poll answers. I think myself, along with probably some of you product managers, have probably been doing product operations before it was called product operations in some way, shape, or form. And that's sort of why I'm really passionate to talk about it. It's something that has definitely become an outcome of product management itself, and just kind of the sheer growth of the role across multiple markets, the entire world at this point, and the importance of what we do for businesses. So I'll take you through this today. The first thing, though, is it's important to understand where we came from in order to move forward and kind of see why this role is really important. And so, before I jump into it, just a little background on myself. I'm 10 years into product. I mentioned I was a product manager, moved over to managing multiple teams across multiple products, really enjoy building products, but also I think enjoyed more growing the craft and the discipline within the companies that I was in order to facilitate really healthy product build from the product team. And there was something about that didn't feel like it was about actually touching the product and delivering on the product itself. And so when I joined Pendo a couple of years ago, I think it hit me that it was a lot of pain within a company where there's a lot of excellence that's required from the product team that doesn't mean building product. And so I raised my hand and I said, I think it's time for us to operationalize excellence for the product team. And I'll take you through, again, like history overall of the role. And I'm sure you'll draw some parallels to what you've seen in terms of pain. And so some people may not know this, but product management itself started a very long time ago. Back in the 1930s, there was this concept of something called a brand man or brand men by Neil McElroy from Procter & Gamble. He wrote this manifesto asking for a new role to be created within an organization where this brand man would be studying data from marketing and sales to understand trouble, or what we call pain today, for the product manager or product management teams. Their role was centered around understanding the trouble and finding solutions that were really simple, but also taking responsibility for all of it, right? And arming sales, arming the teams across the organization, taking all responsibility for marketing, and ultimately freeing up time for revenue facing or revenue generating roles to bring money into their companies. And then about a decade later, you saw at Hewlett Packard, there was kind of this removing of layers where the two founders there were kind of learning from Neil McElroy and matured the model to bring decision-making closer to the customer. So putting the brand man closer to the actual customer, trying to figure out, what are the things that they really need in order to make a difference in their life. And there was also this kind of focus on manageable work, which today, if we think about that, there's like this strain across the world. There's a lot of burnout from what's happened over the last year to year and a half and the way that we operate, right? Because we are so remote, for example, there's just an expectation that we're here and we're always on. And so there's always this concept of how do we make things more manageable to stay efficient. And then in the 50s, there was Kaizen or Kanban, what we would call Kanban today, where Toyota introduced this continuous innovation and improvement model. So CICD, but more like internally improving their processes and trying to figure out what's the next best thing for them to bring to market. They did Plan, Do, Check, Act, which is a modern day Kanban, so more iterative approach to make sure that they're tracking towards what really matters. And it was really cool because at that point, it was like at Toyota, all employees helped improve the company and that they contribute to every different parts of the organization and different goals, but they all help to improve Toyota overall and the experience with Toyota products. In the 60s, there was this growth of consumer goods. And I don't know if anybody on this call is familiar with Mad Men, which was a series back here in the US, but there was brand men that kind of emerged more at that time. And that's sort of what you look at from those marketing agencies that were centered around for Mad Men. There was more focus on marketing and customer sentiment and what that meant from a bottom line perspective back then. And those folks were still likened to what product managers were expected to do back then. There was also this rise in looking at data and helping them understand what data was necessary to help grow the business. And then in the 70s, we saw finally this dedicated role start to come out for the software PM with the growth of software products, right? Think of all the big names that came out in the 70s. And then there was this split focus on driving the product excellence itself, and then somebody else taking care of the marketing. So separating the roles that the brand men traditionally had. And then there was also now a dedicated role of the engineer that was coming to light. Excuse me, sorry, something going on my computer. There was a dedicated role for the engineer for actually building the product, right? And that's really important because now we're seeing more volume coming out from the delivery side from this one specific role that needed to be managed by somebody who's doing the business side. In the 80s, we know Intuit, this was awesome. I feel like this is one of the turning points in products history, which is this Follow Me Home program that Intuit introduced. And this is really putting a product person at the just kind of watching the pain of the customer. And they did something where they would send people to people's homes and watch them install their software, watch them use a product, watch them read manuals to see what the experience was like. And that was truly a game-changing moment because people then realized, oh my gosh, there's so much going on, not only in that moment for the product, but also all around the persona that they were serving, right? And then that kind of led to this emergence of finding an aha moment and really deeply understanding customer pain. Like the aha moment wasn't just for customers, it was for product managers who were starting to say, okay, I'm watching this happen. This is going to make a difference to me and my team. Here's what I need to bring back to the table in order to make a difference for the customer. Then the confusion continued, but it's not just starts. It actually started and continues a little bit till today. But program management, project management, product management, all these things sometimes are interchangeable. Or they seem like, for some folks, they feel like they are interchangeable, but they are very distinct roles. And so a lot of companies started to adopt Intuit's way of working back in the 90s, where there was somebody taking the business need and pain and translating it back to technology on behalf of the customer. We also saw, though, an increase in competition back in the 90s across the board as companies started to grow and more capital was being poured into the market in order to get new products out the door. And in 2000, this is now how we work. There was Agile. There was introduction of Agile teams into the world, and they built kind of on the Kaizen to Kanban model where they looked at continuous incremental value delivery, more focused on delivery from engineering, but helping product teams really understand how to structure their problems to deliver continuous value. And we started to see SaaS companies emerge, and that was layering complexity behind kind of experience because it was not just again, just what you're touching on the product, but the experience for the company overall, from customer success to technical support. How does it all contribute to the health of your company and the product? And then fast forward to today, there's this concept of like the experience and then versus the touch, like I just went through. Company experience and the product experience versus like just the touching and just the product itself. There's a lot of competition. We all are faced with it. But today, product has this awesome seat at the table, right? We have a CPO, and there's this rise of the CPO more recently where they are front and center at the executive table, making business decisions and driving their company, their team's goals forward with the goals of the company and our vision in mind. With that, though, comes so many data points to manage. There's product managers who are faced with making decisions on the fly and then long-term vision decisions that they need to lean into a lot of data. And so it's really hard for them to take in all of that today and make sense of it in a way that facilitates kind of rapid innovation with their teams. Stakeholders are customers today. The closer we are, I guess the smaller the world has become, the closer we are to our customers, and they expect a lot from us. And so that's something really important when you think about SaaS businesses and just technology today. And then to further complicate things, we have this product-led motion around the experience of your company, and the experience of your product should be less touched by humans and more just kind of delivered directly through your product. So how do we lean into more of that today? And so with growth, especially with the growth of product management, comes the need for scale, right? Products grown out into the world, into the universe, and kind of who's there to make sure that all of this is really operating well. And so the other thing that we didn't touch upon is because of COVID over the last year and a half, all these things happen. Choice is more prevalent. There's so much competition in the market today for any given company in any given industry. Remote working is a thing. We are doing this remotely. I used to go face to face. This is the world we live in now. This is the world we're going to continue to live in. Loss of employees. We all are now hearing about the great resignation period where people are suddenly exiting their companies, not because of something they found, but something that they want to do more in life. And so we're left with gaping holes sometimes within organizations where somebody was truly critical. And then finding ways to bring new people that are onboarding up to speed to keep businesses moving. So companies end up finding themselves in the middle of a rush, both from an internal perspective and then an external one. And so an example of that, I was speaking to a customer of ours who's in the home remodeling kind of e-com business. And so she was telling me that pre-COVID, there was no product operations role within her organization. And she was the product manager for one of the lines. And she said when COVID hit, they quickly asked her to be a product operations person, and she had no idea kind of what to do. And it was because their business boomed. People were home. People wanted to take care of their homes. People wanted to enjoy where they were because we didn't know when this thing was going to end. And it's still rising. And so you'll see some data, right, where some industries, most industries have downshifted in expansion. Actually, they've reduced, right? You saw that the home remodeling market went up consistently, even through 2020, 21. So, one of the things that I always ask when you're looking at product teams, I mentioned, I'm passionate about efficiency of product teams and making people really great product managers, is where should they spend their time? Like, time is not infinite. It's something that you should be intentional about giving, both in your personal life and your professional career. And where you place your efforts dictates where you're going to go. And so the two things I personally believe are important for PMs is understanding customer pain really deeply, and the market opportunity that comes with the responsibility of a product manager, so that they can build products that matter and for, kind of align to the purpose of their organization, and continue to win the market. And so the other piece of it is, with all of the pain that they're taking in and all of the opportunity ahead, they need to influence, right? PMs need to influence, and the number one group of folks they're influencing are their engineers. They need to make them feel confident that what they're building is going to change the trajectory of the company. It's going to change the world in some way, shape, or form, and also influence stakeholders at the end of the day to get buy-in. And so if they have to do all these things, today we see a lot of PMs going through more than that, right? They've been solving pain for customers and stakeholders, but who's helping them do what they need to do so that they're actively contributing towards business goals? And I mentioned earlier the CPO now has a firm seat at the executive table, or chief product officer, and they're driving forth business goals. And how do we give the PM the power to do that? And so all of these things are still very much today expected of product managers. And so if certain outcomes for businesses are business critical, you have to make it someone's job. That's my belief. That's what we believe actually here at our company as well. And so for us, product operations operationalizes activities around the PM while thinking and operating like PMs. And so the power behind it is really leaning into the pain within an organization and the pain around what's going on for the product in order to make it successful. That doesn't necessarily touch product build, and who's actually taking care of all of that. And in most cases, it's a part of the PM's job. It is not the PM's role to move those things forward. So I put a poll out a couple months ago around pain that folks see when they move into the role or when they're thinking about the product operations role. One is, I guess the biggest one or the two are release and beta management and all the activities that go into that from a product perspective. That's training and enablement is the second one, but there's release and beta management, meaning the sourcing of candidates, gathering all the feedback, all the documentation, all of the education and the videos, all the things that go into making sure people understand what this thing is and how to use it in order to grow adoption and usage. And then product training and enablement so that your internal people feel really good about what they're going to sell and what they're going to upsell to other customers. And so that's two of the biggest pains. The other one is lack of transparency. You'll see like all of these are in the 20s, right? So there's equal pain around different parts of product itself that that's signaled to people that maybe another role is necessary for us to have somebody focus on, like I mentioned earlier, is, certain outcomes are critical, make it somebody's job. And this is an interesting data point. I actually really love this. We at Pendo put out a report recently called the State of Product Leadership for PMs who were likely to recommend their career path to a friend. The NPS for them was pretty high compared to those people who have product operations within their company, compared to those who don't yet have it but are planning to hire, which was it was an interesting data point when it came up. I was happily surprised because we're still trying to understand what the impact is of this role across the world. But I know in the United States, at least, it's rising quite fast. It shows, though, that PMs feel the pain and they're looking for solutions, and that these solutions, particularly today in this world that's shifting so quickly, are not becoming fast enough. And so how do we get started with this role? And I mentioned kind of leaning into the pain, but before we talk a little bit more about the things that the pain solves for, I always look at skill set, right? There's this need for empathy for anybody that steps into the product operations role, because you're sitting in a central seat within the organization, representing your product teams and representing the revenue org. And kind of, I'll show you this continuous loop that we use to illustrate the communication flow that we have. You're representing either side back and forth, and you're helping them understand what's going on either side of the fence in order to help them, have a bit more patience or help efforts move that much faster. They have to be super focused on data, really leaning into data to help strengthen a case with the PM, for the PM, and back to the revenue org. We tend to get customers in every company that say, I want this and I need this, but when you dig into it, what's the lot of customers saying, right? Is this something that's going to solve for a massive amount of pain, or is it just isolated to one customer? What's the data point that we can use there? Embracing rigor is something else, right? This is operational, so they need to have some rigor and focus behind everything they do. Being really flexible is key. This is not rigid. And so that's the other thing. The rigor kind of comes with rigidity, and that's not what this is. This is iterative, and again, behaving like product managers and touching base every quarter almost to make sure what you've done is impacting the company. They have to be super strong at communication. That's almost a no-brainer. Trustworthy, because they are tasked with understanding the voice of customer. They're tasked with understanding the product roadmap and making sure they're sharing the right things at any given time. And then very customer centric and be a very strong collaborator across the aisle. And so some of the things that we've seen more tactically that product operations people are focusing on, most of these my team actually focuses on, and some are building out today. Beta and release management, like I mentioned, and we can dig into to what that all covers if anybody has questions. Voice of customer programs, which is massive. The influx of feedback that comes into somebody's product or into somebody's company is massive today, right? Everybody wants to see something change in order to make their lives better. How do we stand up programs that help facilitate healthy discussion and elevate the right data points to the product team? So the product ops person is actually acting as an advisor in some way, shape, or form into trends that we're seeing so we can help product teams move forward faster. Documentation and customer education is really critical as a part of this role. A lot of people have now moved technical writing and enablement folks under their product operations teams. Again, operating with a neutral eye and kind of staying focused on what's coming up, and also like looking at the data on all the content they've put out to see what's been effective and what's not been useful. And I mentioned the data focus, so that's kind of off of point 3. Every single person on my team, we are a team of 10 now. In 2 years, we've grown from 1 to 10. Every single one of us has a data point that we need to tell a story around at any given point back to our C-suite. And that is really important. One person focuses on what's going on from a win-loss perspective. One person focuses on what's going on from a beta program perspective, one on training and enablement. There's always something that we need to deliver on. And product tool stack management is another one. So here at Pendo, we are the admins or the Pendo on Pendo owners. We own our instance. We also own anything that interacts with that and any data that comes into it and goes out of it. And again, helping to have folks understand the story that the data is telling and keep everything very clean. Things can become very unwieldy when companies grow. We don't want that to happen. The other thing is escalation management. We do see from, just general bug tickets that are pretty high all the way through incident management. I've seen companies start to loop or to lump the escalation management role under product operations. And so, one of the questions earlier was, is it distinct or is it different from product management, the product operations role? And there definitely is some overlap, particularly because the role is shaping up, right? So if you think of the timeline that I showed earlier, there was a lot of blurring in between everything until about the 60s, 70s, when different roles started to emerge. And that's healthy. That's what we see, but that's also everybody needs to kind of look at this as a shift, what's going to be healthy for the company and how do we each do the thing that we need to do to help drive the business goals forward. And so what I've seen more recently is, and I'll share a poll survey or a survey poll in a little bit on people moving into the role. More product managers are moving into product operations than I thought. Another very happy data point that I saw. So I am a product manager, I said, by background. And so I'm the minority on my team in terms of my background, right? I've got folks that are technical success, customer success, writers, enablement managers. But product managers focus really hard on solving customer pain through product outcomes themselves. What is it that their features are delivering in terms of value? And they partner with customers and engineers to experiment and move fast, right? Let's get this out the door. Let's see if it's working. Let's pivot if not. And then they build the tangible things and the value around the product itself. And for product operations people, we're looking at solving internal customer and stakeholder pain that's tied to product delivery and the things that are coming out from the product team. We ultimately end up creating more stakeholder trust and internal alignment to empower PMs to make better decisions and to help them kind of understand what's going on across the board. And then we are focused on the non-tangible features. That's the stuff I refer to as processes, and hopefully reduction in meetings at times if you're really good at your processes and showing efficiency. And trying to deliver value around the product, not on the product itself. And so I mentioned, people are looking back here, declaring a major. The really nice thing about product management itself is you don't have to become a manager in order to move up in product management. You don't have to manage people. You can become a group product manager or director and still continue to be an individual contributor. And the nice thing now is you also have this other discipline within product management that is product operations, that you can say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stand up these programs that are going to help my team become super healthy and contribute to the company. And so naturally, people that are moving into the role are from product management. Interesting data point is I put another discipline. LinkedIn only allowed me to do a couple. Out of the another discipline, I saw management consulting, training, and education and data science pop up as well. And that's really good because I think that speaks to the kind of strategic value that this role brings to the table and kind of thinking it more in an advisory capacity. I mentioned the training and education piece is essential. And then data science is really people focus on data. So I feel like that is a natural reason why we're seeing this show up a little bit more. And where should the role report into? Most folks that have this say that it's reporting into product management itself. I do see, I've seen a spike more recently actually in operations, just kind of reporting into the COO. But I think my personal opinion, at least today, is that product management is where this role should report into. You are aligned to your CPO and their goals, or if you're reporting into the CEO, depending on structure of the company, you've got that neutral eye. You're looking more at the business level metrics and how to create efficiency around that versus just the product manager side or just the customer success and sales side. And so one thing that I think, though most people have heard about this over the last 2 years alone, I think that it's safe to say it's here to stay. Again, because of the growth of product itself, product management as a role and a discipline, there's a need for us to just operationalize excellence around it. And this is sort of how we illustrate what we do at Pendo as a product operations team. Just kind of this golden blue or bright bluish kind of thread weaving in and out of each team that we partner with. And there's also an aspect here of customers and how we actually get information out to them as well, and just kind of learning from them about the things that they feel are most painful and most valuable, and then taking it back and equally taking back information from our product team on changes in roadmap, what they can expect, what sales and success can expect, and how to get ready for all of it. That is my spiel today on product operations. I'm leaving this here for a second. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have questions, but I know we're going to be taking some questions as well. And this is just my Twitter handle if you do want to connect. Cool. Thank you all so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Christina. Now we are indeed open for questions, and we are happy to see questions typed in the chat wherever you're watching us, be it on Zoom, on one of the live streams. And to give you some time to gather your thoughts and prepare your questions, I wanted to use the opportunity to tell you a bit more about Product People and what we do as a service. I mentioned that we do interim product management at clients for different lengths between 3 to 36 months. And people ask us what are cases when this is needed, when interim PM is even a thing. And these are 5 most common situations. To summarize them, it's either the company, the team is missing a product manager for a certain period of time. It's either a parental leave, or that someone, previous PM left the company and hiring is pretty long and there's still no one and team needs support. Or if you're working on some new initiative that you want to start, or a temporary initiative that is important and urgent, but is time bound, and you need the PM only for a certain period of time. These are the most common cases. Next thing people ask us, yeah, but how do you become efficient actually? Because you need time to onboard and so on. And that is somehow our know-how, how to onboard quickly. And we are quite successful in this from what our clients say. These are some of the notes from our clients shared in messengers or also on our LinkedIn profiles. They usually say that they were really surprised how quickly we onboarded, how we figured all the important topics of the domain, and at the same time supported the team very well as supporting the new hire if the new hire is coming after that. Why am I telling you all of this? First, because I already mentioned, if you see a potential client for us, please refer them to us and we have a good referral bonus. but also because this great team that you see on the slide, these are all product people, is open for some new faces. We are currently have an opening for a product manager and for talent acquisition manager to help us more efficiently get more great product managers. If you are considering new opportunities, or you know someone who is looking for one of those two positions, please refer them to our join page, which is productpeople.join.com, and there are details for both of these job adverts. And with this, we're going to move to the questions. And I see that this short break gave time to write some thank you to Christina in the chat. Also check our YouTube and other places, streams. All right. I see that there is a question from Jordan on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Do you have a starter kit of roles and responsibilities for product ops manager, or any type of RASI you typically use? Christina.
I'm going to repeat the question. So do I have a write-up of roles or responsibilities?
Yeah, or like maybe what's the starter kit to start with?
Yes, I guess because we've definitely put out several product operations roles, and I was actually talking to Marilla a little earlier around my team is structured in three core kind of umbrellas. One is the alignment team that kind of focuses more on the beta process and management and the communication internally and the readiness from a release perspective. Those folks, they definitely have a job description that I put out that has a lot of those core responsibilities laid out. The second one is the systems one I touched on, which they're more responsible for the integration of the systems back in-house so that the product team it's efficient, right? Like that's really the tools they touch. It also is tool management across the board and making sure that we are making good use of it and that it's not dragging our time down. And then the other team is it's easier to kind of write a description for, which is a technical writer, right? In Pendo, technical writing and education falls under product operations. We believe that they should march alongside the PM and operate in the same cadence so that they're delivering content along with releases. And then also, like I mentioned, using the data to see kind of what's effective and where we need to put adoption efforts towards. So there's a lot of, there's three different roles for me that falls under the product operations umbrella. And those each have write-ups that I could probably share if somebody's really interested because we've put all of the job descriptions out. But yes, they have defined roles and responsibilities.
Great, thank you so much. I think there was a question in Zoom. Would I be correct to say that product operations manager is an internal facing role and would perhaps suit large orgs rather than small orgs?
It depends. Well, first, let's answer the last part of that. I don't see a difference when I speak to folks who are in larger companies or smaller companies. Actually, I do see smaller companies adopting it faster than larger ones because larger ones have had some sort of broader operational kind of group, but not specifically focused on product. And so it's interesting because a lot of the questions I get today are coming from larger enterprise companies trying to stand it up versus the smaller companies that are going through growth and really trying to get ahead of the curve and thinking a little bit smarter. And internal facing role, again, I think it depends. Like my product operations team, very much customer facing, but that is probably because Pendo is a product for product managers that facilitates communication as well. And so we are coached to be maniacally focused on the customer. And I have seen in other companies, a lot of our customers told me that that they actually spend a lot more time with customers so that the PM can do more of the deeper research while there's more of the day-to-day type calls that somebody needs to be hopping on. Good question.
Maybe following up on this size of the organization, at which point you would say this is a good place to start thinking about creating this role in the organization when there is, I don't know, 5 PMs or something like that?
Yeah, it's another interesting question. I used to think that that it depended on the amount of PMs that you have and the amount of teams. But I think today it's a combination of that and the goals of the business. And so what is your ARR target for this year, next year? How quickly is your headcount going to grow? Because you are, again, like you're really trying to set up to beat the scale problem. And so really understanding what your targets are from both a headcount perspective and then a revenue perspective will help you set yourself up for success in the product operations role. I don't think it's necessarily so dependent anymore on the amount of PMs that exists in the company. It's you're bringing in, as an example, I see a lot of customers upping their sales teams quite a bit, which means that the growth is happening in terms of customer base or expected to. And so scaling the knowledge and getting them ready is really essential. And so we want to think more along the lines of not only scaling with the PM, but also scaling with the company.
Great, thanks. Bennett, I see you unmuted yourself. Do you want to ask a question?
Where would you see Pendo? Is that part of a, depending on the size of the operation, do you think it would be more in the IT department's responsibility, or in terms of tooling, you know? Sure. In terms of tooling, I'm running from Pendo because we use it quite actually a lot. So that's quite nice to have the opportunity to talk to you. But do you have your operations team also have the tooling, like, I don't know, use Pendo and some Calendly stuff to do that kind of thing to support product management, stuff like that, then launch darkly for the stuff like that? The tooling itself, is that responsible on the product operations or on operations or whatever? What do you say?
At Pendo, I will tell you, we are responsible for Pendo. Every single person here, though, deeply uses Pendo, right? That is a core part of our day. Our leadership team actually checks statistics to see who's using Pendo to make sure we're doing our jobs well. And it really enforces and it helps us just do the things we need to. So the rigor around it, the cleanliness, all of that falls within my team. The kind of like nomenclature within the product for the reports that we name and the tagging and all of that stuff comes through us. What event track events are set up, all of that is kind of like, you know, making sure that we have a tight process around that, we're not duplicating. The overall suite, though, Bennett, of like products that we have at Pendo is managed by IT. So like anything externally, the processes behind it are procurement, right? So like we're going to work with them, but like as it relates to bringing on something that's going to increase the efficiency of the product team, it comes through us. If it's something like Jira that kind of increases the efficiency of both engineering and product, we'll partner with Agile to make sure that we are standing up the right processes and setting goals against usage and all that stuff. But at our customers now, Pendo is owned generally by the product team. And we're seeing an increase in Pendo being owned by the product operations team for the customers that have product ops teams. Again, for the reasons that I've cited, and they lean on us a lot for kind of pointers around that. I have seen a couple places where marketing will own it. It depends on what you're using Pendo for, right? Like we've got one customer who uses it quite heavily for in-app engagement. And so that's more of a marketing use case. And so they started with the marketing team, but their product team uses it equally as much. Does that help you? Okay.
Great, thank you. If you are in Zoom, feel free to raise your hand virtually here and ask questions with your voice. I have another question on starting the product operations at an organization. First of all, what would you recommend? Recruiting people for it or trying to maybe use internal resources first and then recruit more? And the second question, while recruiting for these roles, what experience you are looking for? I remember you had a slide about skills, but what do you think is the best experience to come from to be a good product operations manager?
Okay, good question. So the first one is, would I recommend an internal move or outside? I'm biased because my first couple people were internal. My first two were internal. And it worked out to my advantage and to the company's advantage because they had inherent trust from the organization and they moved really quickly. And so they already understood kind of legacy, some history behind some of the things that existed or didn't exist, and were very quickly able to think through potential solutions. And that drove this role forward really quick. Now today, that was back when the role was not very understood in the industry. Now today we're seeing the rise of this role, at least again in the United States. And so with that, we're seeing people hire outside first. Like I had a customer who came to me and asked me for advice on, should he hire an individual contributor or should he go for a director, right? And I think it depends on what's going on in the company. Like, do they want somebody to strategically build the plan first and then hire people under them or move people within the company? It just so happens that that person hired a director, and then now that director is bringing in people from different parts of the org that are already known. So I think it really depends on how quickly you want to either get processes moving and executed, or if you want to take a more strategic approach and then have somebody fill it as they go. From the second part of that was skill set. I did list some of more of the
and who hiring, what are you looking for? What kind of experience maybe, or which roles, past roles?
I did list like some of the soft skills. So you definitely, again, neutral, empathetic, data-driven, all the things that allow you to very quickly make decisions and stay calm while you do it. Again, you're hearing problems from all angles now, like not just customers. So you have to stay very chill, as I say to my team. Technical skills. So from a systems perspective, the people that are going to be working more with the products and kind of doing more integrations for your products they need to be a bit more technical, right? They need to be able to execute on that. From a process management perspective, I think somebody who's very agile and flexible, again, like really taking feedback and making changes very quickly, they have to be able to influence. It's really similar, again, to how product people work, product managers work, in that we have to, right now, I know my team is going through what we call product, what is it? It's like a brand new name that we just stood up, product showcase. It's called a product showcase. That's our massive enablement that we do on a monthly basis here. And it took, a good amount of talking and a good amount of kind of sharing the why behind that in order to get like the relevant folks to the table. And all of a sudden the program grew where some people were coming and there were 11 people. And now the last time there were like 285 people that joined. And so somebody who's very influential and showing like what outcomes can happen if like this was executed on is really, really important in this role.
Would you say it's important that they had a product role before, like product manager or product owner, or not necessarily?
I think that it would strengthen their effectiveness if they had a product manager role or even a product research role before, to be honest with you. It doesn't hurt if they don't, but it would only strengthen and help them if they do have that background and experience. And I think it's because like I know personally when every time I onboard somebody new to my team, unless they have experience with product managers, I'm coaching them again on what I say is a core principle in the way that we work, which is think and operate like a PM. And you want them to have that focus on pain before they do anything in their job. PMs have that inherently, for sure.
Got it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm having another question here from LinkedIn. So first, Jordan, thanks you for answering her question from before about starter kit responsibilities. And she has a bit of a follow-up. I would love to see the list of responsibilities Christina uses for her team. I often run into an issue where leaders in the company think that we're just offloading work from the product managers to product ops. But if we can specifically list out the responsibilities that should be aligned to an ops role, I think it would help make the case. It's exciting to be on the forefront of something that's desperately needed for a product run, or for a product org to run efficiently.
Yeah,
I guess partially you covered that, right?
Yeah, and I'm happy to also, I mean, we have several job descriptions up on Pendo, like our site, that we've seen other companies use for product operations. I actually have to refresh the one directly from us because we just hired a product operations manager who's been seasoned for a bit. He's been in the role for about 2 years. I'm going to refresh that, but you can definitely check our site and see some of those that are recommended. And I totally hear you, by the way. It's an awesome question, and it's a common pain. Again, like people think that it is meant to just lessen the pain from the PM and offload some of the work. And something our CPO said to me that just was awesome was you are not hand-holding the product manager. Your job is not to handhold. Your job is to help people make decisions faster. Your job is to make sure people are moving in this process so that we execute against our business goals. And though you sit and report into me, you operate as a muscle for the entire company. And so that's something that that you should probably sit down with leadership and talk about, which is what's the effectiveness, not from the just for the product manager, but for the entire company. And what does that mean? As an example, we had, we acquired a new product a while back, and we learned that there were some efforts that went into enablement and training that, some folks were really into it. Some folks were sort of there. And then we had some engagement that didn't even happen, right? And so naturally with growth, we had people that needed to be brought up to speed and people that needed to be recoached. And so one of my product operations managers dug into, she's like, why are some of these things coming back from customer calls? Like, I don't understand why I'm hearing this. And when she found out that there was a lot of pre-sales pain behind understanding the technical capabilities of the product. And she did a ton of research with the sales team to understand what was going on and developed this really cool thing called like a technical gotcha sheet. And she put it together with the blessing of the product manager after to make sure like, hey, this is what I'm putting out there. I just want to make sure you're good. And it just changed the game, right? Something so simple and effective where do you want that to be a product manager's role to do it? Like, I mean, again, a lot of companies are still having product managers do all that documentation, but while they're also expected to execute and deliver features, how are they going to stop and really get that deep and do the research to understand what that pain is?
Good point. Thanks. Very interesting question I see on Zoom. How do you manage conflicts between the PLM teams and PM teams?
How do we manage conflicts between the PL? Can you give me an example of a conflict that I would need to manage?
Did this ever happen in your experience that maybe, again, responsibilities were not clearly defined and that's why people were confused on who is doing what? Or you managed to never had this issue?
There's always a healthy blurring, or there's a blurring of the lines, right? Especially when this role starts. I think the thing to lay out is sitting down with your product management team and saying, where do you feel the most, similar to what I just said happened with sales. That's how we kicked off understanding where our efforts would be best placed. We put a survey out to our PMs and we said, on average, how much time a week are you spending in discovery and research? What is your ideal target for discovery and research? On average, how much time are you spending doing conflict resolution or escalation management with our success team? And we got some really crazy data points that we were like, okay, where's your time going and where do you ultimately want to be? And so that kind of put the framework in place for us to say, great. So what about if we then focus on the operational excellence around this one area and test the waters and see if that alleviates some of the pain you're feeling there? That helped us to shape what we were going to use as part of our job description for the role. And then we said with our PMs, like, are you good with this? Like, does this feel healthy? And none of them complained. So it was nice today. Today I was talking to a new machine learning head of product in our Israel office, and she mentioned that that they are, she was like, I didn't know about product operations and now I wish I had it in my last company. Like, and she's only been here for like 3 months, and she's like, the team just helps change the game. So as long as you have an open mind from your product team and understanding like that this is a true partnership, you should be okay. But again, understand where their pain is and help them figure out how to solve it.
All right. Yeah, good point. So basically defining responsibilities together initially and clear communication going forward should prevent the conflicts and create a collaborative environment.
Yeah, and the other thing too, as a part of, oh, sorry, I was going to say just one more piece of that is as your teams grow, as your companies grow and you bring on new product managers, like for us, what works is becoming a part of the onboarding process for the product manager, because it helps them understand what processes are in place and who's facilitating what, and it helps them just set up and move really quickly. And so once you lay the foundation with your existing product team as you grow, it only gets stronger, because it also helps set expectations with new product folks that like, you've got a partner helping you do this. Like, here's where, you know, and their manager would ultimately say, here's where your efforts are to be placed, right? So just grow along with the teams as they grow.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks so much. Are there any final pieces of advice or wisdom you feel like sharing right now, Christina? Something that came to your mind in this discussion?
I always share that when you're standing this role up, when you're thinking about it, it's easy to become overwhelmed, because you're going to uncover more pain than you thought was there. And it's consistent across the customers and the people I talk to. And you're going to want to solve it all, particularly if you have that product heart, but just start small. That's my piece of advice, is you have to start, take the first step, show value, change it incrementally. My teams, like I remember in the beginning, we were saying, okay, we will each pick 3 goals to focus on for the quarter. And then I learned what SaaS business really was, because we moved so quickly in the SaaS business world. And I said, okay, now we're taking it down to 2. And so it's good, because like we learned that there's a balance for product operations teams. You want them to be strategic and help you look at the data and focus on where to go next, and help the PMs understand what's going on. But there's also the day-to-day that they need to execute on. So really taking on a healthy amount of work is going to set you up for success. Don't take it all on.
Great tips. Thank you so much, Christina. That was a very insightful talk. And thank you so much for answering all the questions from our audience.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
With this, we are... Sure. Yeah, I was going to say we're wrapping up our session. Just a few last words. Do come to our next event. It's every week. Find us on Meetup, Product Management People. If you want to talk more about product operations or other product management related topics, join our chat for the community. It's in Telegram, Get Product People. If you want to support us in some more tangible way, we are running these events for free, and we still need to pay for the tools. So if you want to help us, please support us on Patreon. Otherwise, thank you all for coming in today, listening in on stream, joining on Zoom, asking questions, being active. I see there are also more thank you message on our chat. Thanks again, Christine. We wish everyone a great evening. Bye.